Welcome back to Midpoint, everybody, and also welcome back the former Assistant Secretary for Policy at the Department of Homeland Security and currently with Steptoe and Johnson, Stewart Baker rejoins us again. Let me get now to the Department of Homeland Security that you brought up at the end of the last segment here. They are now the ones who basically oversee the Secret Service here. Is it possible, and I'll bet you I already know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from you as the expert, that the Department of Homeland Security is just too big, too clunky, too wieldy, and they simply do not have a handle on all the different agencies that they're involved in right now, and this is one that slipped through the cracks?
I don't think it's that they're too big and too clunky. It's more that the Secret Service made it very clear they didn't expect to be and didn't really want to be overseen in any detail by the department. And the department at the top actually has relatively few resources to engage in oversight. But it's almost impossible if the secretary says, I'd like to the head of the Secret Service, I'd like you to do something, and the head of the Secret Service says, well, I was just meeting with the president and he wants me to do something different. You can't manage somebody who has their own pipeline to your boss.
Well, doesn't that tell us something right there? You have an organization that is working for an organization and they say, no, it's okay, really, we're okay, everything's fine, go away. And now you also brought up a second point here, not having the resources. So let's just first deal with that. Doesn't that tell you right away that from the very outset, the Secret Service has for a long time there's been this major disconnect between they and DHS right now, and there was no way that it was going to work properly. Something had to break down here, and we've seen it happen.
Yeah, I don't know whether this is a breakdown in the fact that because there is no oversight. The White House doesn't have time to oversee an organization like this, and they have their own things that they want. They want everything to go smoothly. They want the president protected, but they don't want any visible security if they can avoid it. So that's their guidance. The detailed day-to-day organizational guidance that you might have expected from the cabinet head, I suspect did not happen here. I don't think it happened when the Secret Service was part of the Treasury because they had so little to do with Treasury's main mission. So they've got 100 years of essentially working for themselves and for the president. And that's a culture that ultimately does tend to close in on itself. And that, I suspect, is what we're seeing here today.
What can Americans take away from this when you have an agency whose job is to protect the president and his family? That is their job. They're part of national security in many ways, if you think about it. And what we have seen could lead us to believe that the president and or his family could have been killed at any time by some lax leadership here. What does that tell America then about their national security? If these are the guys that have to protect the president, how's anybody else going to protect them?
I think this is a Secret Service issue, but I do think that we're all human beings. We learn from lessons. We learn from things that go wrong. But if the only things we find about that go wrong in the Secret Service is somebody dies, we are not going to be happy with that management style. And so the Secret Service should have had a way of identifying things that went wrong where nobody died and reacting to that the way the military does. They do after-action reports on what they did wrong. They're often very, very self-critical. I don't see that, but I think we're going to have to see that in the Secret Service.
Joseph Clancy is going to be the interim acting director for the time being. About the minute 30 that I have left here, let me ask you, you're somebody who knows from what you speak, certainly here, from organizations such as these. What is the next step, and what would you, if you were making the choice, recommend that they do in order to right this agency?
They need an outside board of overseers who can pull out the lessons, the mistakes, and oversee the creation of someone inside the agency or outside whose job is to find those problems and get to the root causes and make sure that the incidents don't happen again.
Is it fair to say, though, that maybe one of the first things they need to do is not hire somebody who has worked in the Secret Service before, like they did with Julia Pearson?
You know, the FBI has had outsiders come in to run them for 30 years, and on the whole, it's worked out pretty well. I think the Secret Service probably should consider that model.
Can you think of anybody who might be good for the job?
no one leaps to mind, but the usual folks are former judges, former police chiefs, and former high-ranking law enforcement execs from other agencies.
You're not interested in the job, right? Just want to make sure there's an opening in case you're wondering. We had to always bring it up. Stewart, thank you very much for your time. We'll look forward to speaking again.
Great to talk to you.
All right, later this hour, just in time for the holiday season, gas prices are going way down, or are they? And after the break, why America has to intervene in foreign lands at any cost. It is something to think about as we're under attack again. That and much more coming up right here on Midpoint.